we'll have a short answer on this one. I've got Sam asking us, how long do you have to wait for an ag exemption? He's looking at buying a home on land, and there's a big field, and I remember you said this another month and a half ago.
I upset a lot of people on that a couple months ago or whatever. I got some angry emails, and then I got some apologies after that. But the shortest answer I can give you that's almost always correct is you have to establish agricultural use for 5 years. Now, there's going to be some differences in certain parts of the country and states and counties and things like that, but if you acquire a property that already has an agricultural exemption and you continue the agricultural use, then you don't have to reestablish that. If you buy a property that's never had an agricultural exemption, you're going to have to go through that established period to establish that, and that's 5 or more years. If you buy a property that previously had an agricultural exemption and has lost it, the taxing authority will treat it as though it never had it. You got to start all over and establish that cause for the exemption. Sadly, what's happened, and I don't know if it's sad or not, it's a bummer, but across most parts of the state of Texas, over the last decade or so, a lot of counties have kind of needed the tax revenue, and so they've started to crack down on the restrictions for what you were originally always supposed to have done to obtain an agricultural exemption. And a lot of people honestly weren't. They were growing grass and cutting it and saying that they were agricultural producers, and they weren't. They were putting a goat on their property for 3 months and taking it off and giving it to someone or slaughtering it or whatever and calling it agricultural use. They had trees on it, and so they were looking for a timber exemption. They weren't selling it for timber profits or anything. So they really weren't meeting the requirement for a timber exemption. But historically in Texas, if you own land of more than a half acre or so, people kind of gave you the tip of the hat and said, we want that, and so we'll give you this exemption. People have, appraisal districts have cracked down significantly in the last 10 years, where they have taken those away from a lot of people. The people haven't changed anything. They just never really were officially meeting the requirement. And so that's frustrated a lot of people, because the ownership of land, the cost of owning land has gone way up, because really they were having to pay the taxes they should have always been paying. But it's hard. That's one of those kind of nostalgic, emotional versus exactly the way the law reads. So I'm a law obeyer. I abide by the law, but I also appreciate that in the South, especially Texas, we value land ownership. So that's kind of a bummer. But that's the answer to the question.